Well, welcome to the Installer Plaza here at Installer 2026. And if you are an installer, you probably should be here right now because we're going to talk about illegal radiators. And concerns are really growing over misleading heat output claims for some radiators sold in the UK, with exaggerated performance figures potentially leading to underperforming systems, higher energy use and unhappy customers. Well, MARC, the Manufacturer Association of Radiators and Convectors, and the OPSS, the Office for Product Safety and Standards, are working together to address this issue. And we're going to have a discussion about it now. So I'm going to start to my immediate left. Tell us who you are, blind date style. Who you are and where do you come from?
Hello everyone, my name is Chris Harvey. I am Marketing Director for Stelrad UK and
Just
Ireland.
hold the microphone just like that. That's it.
Like that.
See, you can hear yourself now.
Right. So my name is Chris Harvey, Marketing Director for Stelrad UK and Ireland.
Welcome. Next.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris Hone. I am Sales Director for Purmo Group in the UK, which includes a Meissen brand.
Are you also a Ricky Gervais tribute act?
Sometimes, in the evening.
Right, okay.
Yeah, hello everybody, I'm Richard and I'm an enforcement manager at the Office of Product Safety and Standards working on radiators.
Good afternoon, my name is Andy Phillips. I am Managing Director of URSAP UK Limited, so we trade as the radiator company and supplies for heat. And for my sins, I'm also Chair of the Manufacturers Association of Radiators and Convectors, which is just as thrilling as it sounds.
My name is Nick Bayliss. I'm CEO of Castrads. We make cast iron radiators, which go into homes in the States, UK and across Europe.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. My name is Geraldine Hayden and I am the Operational Manager at the Office of Product Safety and Standards and working with Richard on the matter of radiators.
Brilliant. Well, welcome all. Andy, let me start with you, if I may. Why is MARC so concerned about radiators being sold with incorrect heat output claims? I mean, it seems like a ridiculous question, but tell us why.
Well, no, I think to first of all take a step back. We need to think and remember that why the legislation exists in the first place. And the legislation is designed to protect the consumer and the installer. And to create a level playing field so all manufacturers must publish heat output data at exactly the same level. So it's legislation that's designed to be able to for the consumer or an installer to look at different brands and make a direct comparison between those different brands. Now, to answer your question as to why we're concerned, it's simply this, that over many years, we've noticed an awful lot of manufacturers publishing heat output data at effectively incorrect temperatures. Without getting too technical and talking about delta T's, we noticed an awful lot of manufacturers, either through ignorance or potentially willfully doing so, and therefore creating an unlevel playing field, which then means that potentially the consumer is being hoodwinked.
And the consumer won't know, necessarily.
No, absolutely not. The consumer won't know. You need to be reasonably technical to understand the legislation that's behind it.
So you've kind of said what the manufacturers are required to do before bringing them to market, but which radiators fall under the construction products regulation?
Okay, so that's relatively simple. The radiators that fall under this legislation are hydronic radiators. So any radiator that goes onto a standard central heating system, a wet system, these are the radiators, and including towel rails, these are the radiators we're talking about.
Right, okay. Now look, the definition of manufacturer is quite broad, isn't it? How can importers, distributors and resellers be better supported to understand their legal responsibilities?
So you're quite right, the definition of a manufacturer is broad. We should say probably at this point that if you sell a radiator in the UK as though it is your own, then in the eyes of the law, under construction product regulations, you are the manufacturer.
Really?
So that's important for everyone to understand that. So if you're buying a product from a manufacturer either in the UK a factory, let's call them, in the UK or in Europe or anywhere else, but you sell those radiators in the UK as though they are your own. You are the manufacturer.
So then the responsibility falls on you, and you're then the liable.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. And
Yeah.
do people know that?
I think Richard to my right would probably say no, but I won't put words in his mouth.
Richard?
Yeah, happy to come in on this. So I think the issue is that, first off, people need to understand, they need to read the regulations and understand what their various obligations are as manufacturer, distributor, importer, and so on. But I'm not sure it's one of their obligations being unclear. I think it's more that supply chains are quite complicated. So, for example, you might be sourcing a radiator that's made wherever, in the Far East, for example. You might bring that in, and then you might bring it in via an importer, then it might go through a distributor, there might be a retailer involved. So and then as Andy's mentioned, you've got all the issue around white labelling and own branding.
So you could be second or third down the line and not know, so you've required to do a bit of due diligence yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, okay. Nick, let me just come back to you if I may. What impact do incorrect heat output claims have on energy efficiency and consumer costs and UK net zero target? We're hearing a lot about UK net zero targets. What effect?
At its worst, it can mean that your efficiency plummets, that the consumer is cold, or just that your system doesn't work to the designed efficiency. And of course, when you've got a spark gap of 4.7 in the UK, your efficiency is everything. So it's the purse strings of the consumer. It's the reputation of the installer. It's our reputation as an industry.
Yeah.
And worse still, it's the public purse, which is supporting these low-carbon installations, all of which is at jeopardy when these installations go wrong. Because if people put in a heat pump, the system doesn't work as expected, then people are not going to, they're unlikely to blame the radiator. They're going to blame the heat pump.
Yeah, yeah, and bad news sells papers as well, the newspapers, doesn't it? Good news
Absolutely.
doesn't. So you're going to hear about it as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Geraldine and Richard, maybe you want to come in on this as well. The biggest challenges in enforcing compliance of BSEN 442, what are they? And the current enforcement powers, are they stringent and strong enough, would you say? I don't know who wants to pick that up first.
I can start off, and Jerry can add something maybe. But so I think the first thing to stress is that as the regulator, we try and take a pragmatic, evidence-based approach to what we're doing. As a starting point, we'll always try and engage with businesses. If we find that there's non-compliance involved, we'd much rather work constructively.
You're not the gotcha police, are you? You know?
No, definitely not. But if that doesn't work for whatever reason, then we've got a number of powers in the regulation. So we could issue a prohibition notice, we could issue a notice to warn, and so on. And in the most serious of cases, then we could, of course, start criminal proceedings as well. So, yeah, I think the powers are there. It's just how we go about using them. But I think the message that I really want to get across is enforcement won't tackle this on its own.
Right.
It's got to be in collaboration, and that's why we're delighted to be on the panel today. It's got to be in collaboration with the industry, and the sector really has to rise to this and say, yeah, we're going to do the right thing. We're going to work to get this sorted out and be compliant.
Did you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks. One of the things that I just want to emphasise really is these regulations are not new. They're the Construction Product Regulations 2011 and the standard BSEN 442 2014. So we're not talking about something that you shouldn't have been complying with already. And one of the main requirements of the Construction Product Regulations is the supply, so the manufacturer has to draw up and supply as the start of the golden thread a declaration of performance, a valid declaration of performance. And it's in that declaration of performance that you will see the information, what we're referring to, heat output, delta T30 and delta T50. So what the consumer, and I put myself in that position, I should be able to ask as a consumer for the declaration of performance for the product. And that information must be supplied with the product. Now, there's various ways you can do that, either with put it on a website, or you can send a paper copy. So it has to be there, and that has to go through the supply chain, even to the end retailer. The retailer must be supplying that to the consumer.
Right, okay, well, let's just, I was going to say get in the real world, but that is the real world. But also the real world is the installers perhaps need to be encouraged, and Nick, I'm going to come to you on this, to check delta T values, because how practical is it in the real world to do that, and what support would help to do them effectively?
So the DOP should be available. It's a legal requirement, and for years and years and years, it's just not been known about, I think. So the first thing I'd like to do is raise awareness of the DOP and the requirement to have one. The second thing is that, to my mind, I think the heating industry is in such an interesting place at the moment. We've got such great technology being developed. People like HeatGeek, people like Spruce, people like H2X, people like Heat Engineer, all of these businesses are making great strides in the accuracy of heat loss. And what I want to make sure is that we are all singing off the same hymn sheet. So there are two numbers that are given to us, the radiator manufacturers, by the notified body, the test house that does the testing of the radiator. The two numbers are called KM and N, and it is a temperature-independent way of defining a heat output. Now, I know this sounds really technical. It's not. It's just two numbers. If we all use those same numbers, then we would all get to the same result, but we don't at the moment. And I think the fact that we don't use those numbers is neither here nor there to the consumer, but to the people behind the software and the installers. I think we ought to just raise awareness that that's how to properly calculate at any water temperature.
Andy, you're looking like you're gagging to get in.
No, I absolutely, with what Nick says. I think it might be useful maybe to take one step back and just explain the basis of what a manufacturer must do when they place a radiator for sale in the UK market. Because there are three steps, if you like. Number one is you must have that radiator tested. Now, you can't do it in your garden shed yourself, okay? And if you're a manufacturer, you can't, well, you can test it yourself, but that wouldn't be valid. So the test has to take place in something called a notified body, which is legal mumbo jumbo, sorry, Richard, for an accredited laboratory, okay?
Right.
So first of all, you've got to get your radiator tested in an accredited laboratory. Number two is the declaration of performance that would then come out of that particular test. And the third thing, which is really important, is that any output data that you publish, whether it's in literature, whether it's online, anywhere it is, that must be published at two levels, either delta T50 or delta T30, and in watts. Now, BTUs are completely prevalent across the UK market with radiators. And I think, without putting words in Richard and Jerry's mouths, that's fine. But they must be in watts as well as BTUs. So these are really basic requirements that must happen. So to go back to, like, how does an installer spot if something is slightly awry, and how are they supported? How can they tell? Number one, is there a clear statement of the delta T? All right? Does it clearly say these outputs are at delta T50 or delta T30? If it doesn't clearly say that, that's a red flag. Number two, does it say these outputs are at delta T60 or delta T70, somewhere in the small print? Or does it not mention a delta T? That's another red flag. All right? And these are really, really basic things.
You're quite passionate about this, aren't you?
I'm really sorry. I know
No,
it's really
don't
boring,
apologise.
but I
It's
am.
great.
Only because, look, I work for a business who's tried their level best to really adhere to the law. And as Jerry said earlier on, I think 2013, this became a legal requirement.
Right.
And as Richard will tell you, I'm sure, as recently as this year, he's found lots and lots of examples of businesses selling radiators and towel rails that are not adhering to this. And we really, really need to work hard as an industry to educate part of what this is today, the market.
So you talk about the declarations of performance. How can manufacturers and distributors make them more accessible and useful for installers and specifiers?
Supply them with the product or put them on the website. It's that simple.
Right.
And it's a criminal offence not to. It's a criminal offence not to supply the declaration of performance at the time of the supply of the product.
Chris?
You asked earlier about how practical it is for installers to be checking this information when they purchase a product. Well, it's our job to make sure that it's practical, that they can check, and that the information is readily available at the point of sale.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, when replacing radiators, what are the key considerations and who's the best place, and I'll bring you guys in as well, to assess the heating requirements? It's the installer, right? I mean, just...
I've had several conversations today about upgrading people's heating systems and moving to renewable air source heat pump, like the example mentioned before.
Just nice and close with the mic.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
And each example this morning, I was asked, are my radiators need to be changed? Because I don't think it's common knowledge that the heating system needs to be upgraded. Not just the heat pump or the hot heat source, but the pipe, the valves, and the radiators. So there's a lot of things that need to be considered. I don't know if that information is being passed through to the correct people who are going out to consumers to do the work.
Chris?
And this isn't, as Geraldine said earlier, this isn't new. So the heat outputs and the performance of radiators was really important years ago when we were putting them in with boilers that can fire 90 degrees at them all day long. It's just, it was important then, and it's absolutely critical now when we move into a lower temperature system that the system performs as it should.
Not all consumers are educated, if you like, in this kind of topic, and they just want a radiator that works, sort of thing. So what should they look for when buying a radiator, and where can they find that reliable product information? I mean, you said internet and publish, but it's only certain people who will go that far. So what should they do?
Do you know what? I can pick up this to start with, but I think the first thing is we've spoken a lot about the declaration of performance.
Yeah.
People need to be actively asking for the declaration of performance. And the other thing is, it's not just about having the declaration of performance, it's about making sure it's compliant.
But
so
who should be asking for the declaration of performance?
Anybody that's buying the product. So it could be a consumer, could be an installer.
So I don't mean to interrupt you, but as a consumer, how do I know about it?
Well, this is why we're talking so much about the importance of the declaration of performance, because if you do them correctly and compliantly, then it's very easy to look at two documents from two different manufacturers and very easily compare like for like.
And how easy is it to understand it as a consumer who's not a specialist?
Yeah, that's a different question.
Yeah.
I wonder if I might step in here. Who's heard of Fencer in the audience? Has anyone heard of Fencer?
Some hands and
Windows,
nodding.
yeah?
Yep.
Who's heard of, before today, who had heard of MARC?
Couple of people, 2 or 3 hands, yes.
All right, good. Well,
His
glad that
name's
these two
Mark.
have. I think it's a reasonable assumption to say that MARC is not very well known as a trade body among the public. I wish it were more so.
And hang on, we haven't got the public here. We've got people with vested interest.
Yeah, exactly. So as members of MARC, so those radiator manufacturers on this panel are all members of MARC. We have a mutual agreement that we are going to supply each other with the proof that we have had that we adhere to the standard.
Andy, were you going to say something as well?
Yeah, I think when it comes to any technical product, and radiators in and of themselves are not particularly technical, but of course they're only part of a bigger system, yeah? And so a consumer will nearly always be working in tandem with an installer at some point.
Yeah.
Very, very rare is a consumer going to buy a radiator and install it themselves, right? Unless they are themselves an installer, right?
Right.
So you're working in tandem with an installer. And it's one of the reasons why we want to reach out to installers today to make sure that installers are very much aware of this. And we also need to do as much work as we can as an organisation, and whether that's PR, whether it's presenting case studies, whether it's talking on our own websites, both MARC and our own individual websites, about these issues. And realistically, I would appeal to any reseller of radiators to join a trade body. And I know I'm pushing MARC, and it's not necessarily about MARC, but that's how you find out about legislation change.
Yeah.
And that's not just about radiators necessarily, but if you're running a business, there's lots of legislation changes that happen that you need to know about. So I would encourage all businesses to join a trade association.
Okay, so does the manufacturer have a responsibility here as well? We've said very rarely will it be the consumer, the end user, buying the radiator. So is there a question of educating the installer that they need to know this information in part? Yeah.
You're absolutely right. But also the reseller, the distributor.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to buy into this and accept what it is, because it has huge implications down the line for the consumer.
Yeah.
If there's not buy-in, then that then allows for uncertified product get to the market.
Chris, did you want to say
Yeah,
something?
I think the reality is that, you know, we're at an industry show here. Everyone here is well, most people here are industry experts.
Yeah.
We all have a collective responsibility to support the consumer.
Right.
You know, we as manufacturers have a responsibility to support the installer, and the installers have a responsibility to support the consumer. The reality is, are we going to reach the consumer with all of this legislative detail? Probably not. But if we can reach the installers, and the installers understand the responsibility they hold with the consumer, then we can get to the consumer that way.
Because to be honest, I don't work in your industry, and I prove that every day when I'm here. But if I want a new system, I'm going to trust my installer.
100%.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's what I need to be able to do. Does anybody have any questions or any comments they'd like to make at all on what they've heard so far today? Does everybody agree? Anybody disagree? I hope not, but I mean, we'll find out. But no. Okay, is there any sort of... what needs to change, really, do we think? What really needs to change across the industry to help this happen? Because we sit here year after year, talk about various things within the industry. It's an education job. Well, who picks up that ball and runs with it?
I would love to see MCS requiring, it is MCS, right? I would love to see a burden of proof required, so you'd need to submit the DOP if you're to qualify for the zero rate VAT for a heating system.
Thank you. Anybody else? Jerry?
Yeah, I think all the people in the supply chain have a responsibility, and it has to start with the manufacturer of the product, and it ends with the consumer, who must be educated to understand and request the DOP.
Because you can't expect them, if they don't know about it, how the heck can they actually ask for it?
Exactly. And we play a role in that as well, because we're in a cost of living crisis. You know, when you turn up your radiator, you want it to perform as it says it's going to. You need it to heat your home.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, you are rightly going to be very unhappy. So this does matter. We need a level playing field so that regulation is the norm, not the exception.
Fine.
And so it doesn't need, those who are complying with the regulations shouldn't be disadvantaged by that.
Do you guys all talk together?
Yep.
Yeah, go on.
And I think with OPSS being involved in this subject shows how important it is. Yeah, I think we all agree with that. As a trade association and manufacturers, we have tried to get this message into the market. But OPSS's involvement is really the sort of the tick or the stamp that and confirm what we have all been trying to communicate and what has been our issue every day. And it's good to see.
Well, perhaps next year you could come back and we'll see exactly what the next 12 months brings and how successful you've been. Would you be happy to do that? I know you've got another series of Afterlife to record, but that's okay. But look, I just want to thank you all, genuinely. Sorry, you probably never had anyone say that to you before. No, never, never. You look like the love child of Boy George and Ricky Gervais, to be honest with you, but there you are. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Yeah, go on. Did you want to say a word in closing?
Yeah, sorry. Just to say, in conjunction with the OPSS, we are creating a guide for manufacturers. Just to be clear, again, a manufacturer, anyone who sells a radiator as though it's their own. And this guide is focusing on the declaration of performance to try and help manufacturers to make sure that they are producing declarations of performance that are in line with the legislation.
I just want to go back to something you said much earlier, and it's just struck me. You've got a white label, right, product.
Yep.
Are you telling me if I buy a white label product off a manufacturer, I am responsible, and the manufacturer original manufacturer isn't at that stage?
Correct.
Or is everybody involved responsible?
So, go on, Richard. Sorry, you're better.
Yeah,
Richard.
I can come in on this. So it kind of depends, unfortunately.
Okay.
If the original
I shouldn't have asked this question.
It's fine. If the original manufacturer is selling the product under their own brand as
Yes.
well, they are responsible for the compliance in their
Right.
name. If somebody takes that and white labels it and own brands it, they then become responsible.
Right.
So you
okay.
could have a situation where you've got several entities that are responsible for the compliance of that product.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to find. Feel back. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, just to be clear, the responsibility is with the declaration of performance.
Fair enough.
So the
Yeah.
original test would, as long as it was done
Still stands.
in the notified body, in the accredited laboratory, the original test still stands. But the responsibility for the declaration of performance, the DOP, then rests with the reseller.
Brilliant. Fascinating session. Thank you. And if you've got any questions for them, you're going to hang around? You need to, because at 1 o'clock, we've got the ever popular Heating Installer Awards. I know people are already starting to gather here, and the Plumber Awards for the very first year as well. So we're going to be announcing those at 1 o'clock. Thank you very much for joining us. If you can't join us at 1 o'clock, we'll enjoy whatever you're doing. And once again, thank you to our panel.